Vesselin Popov is the Business Development Director for the University of Cambridge Psychometrics Center. He also leads the Apply Magic Sauce initiative, which turns our public social data into uncannily accurate profiles of who we are. We're lucky that Ves is using his powers for good. Please welcome to the stage, Vesselin Popov.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for having me. Hope you can all hear me okay. I'm going to talk today about personalization, which I believe brings together two of the themes that we've been talking about earlier in the day. One of those themes, I think, is content, and we know that great content is at the heart of every successful communication. And the other is big data, which we've just heard about. I believe that personalization is the battleground for making the most of these two opportunities and these two trends. So when I think about content and I think about social, there's only one number that's really important to me, and that number is actually one. The individual engaging with a piece of content, whether that be image, video, live, literature, or anything. We always, as psychometricians, and I work at the Psychometrics Center in the University of Cambridge, we care about that individual, about their individual experience, and the unifying trait that brings people together and makes them engage, one of which is personality, and I'm going to talk a lot about personality today. So to introduce you to the Psychometrics Center's work, we were founded about 30 years ago, and at that time, psychometrics was making paper and pencil questionnaires, making some computerized questionnaires, but basically filling in forms. So trying to measure things like personality, intelligence, leadership, all kinds of skills that are taught in educational settings and occupational settings, also in clinical trials. And what we've seen with the explosion of social networks and online communication is that most of the questions you would like to ask as a psychologist have already been answered in digital form. So do you want to know if someone's an extrovert, so whether they're sensation-seeking? They just take a look at their Instagram feed, and probably you can get a sense of that already. And now this is something that humans have evolved to be really good at, because it's really important for us to be able to determine personality of those with whom we interact. But it's only quite recently that computers have started beating us at our own game, at psychological measurement. So when I think about the process of personalization, I first think about the data. What is a relevant digital footprint that someone could share with me in order for me to generate insight on their psychological profile? So the kinds of digital footprints that we all have, whether or not you use Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, or anything else, we all have a mobile phone, pretty much, a smartphone in our pockets. We all take public transport, which generates digital behavioral residue as well. Many of us have credit cards, mobile payments. Most of us probably, if not all, listen to music in some form or another, and probably through a digital method. So all of these are digital footprints that, from the perspective of a psychometrician, are actually psychological data. They're not just social media data. This is data about what we feel, how we think, who we want to interact with, and so on. So given a digital footprint, our work is around predicting psychology so that we can build AIs that understand these things and care about the underlying human traits. What this allows you to do is not only get better insight on customers and individuals, but also instantly offer feedback to those whose data you're using. So this applies whether or not whether the data is public or not. We believe that you should provide feedback, and brands should know as much as consumers know about themselves. What's really exciting when you know someone's personality is you can start to personalize their experience. So you might change the images that they see, you might change the language you use to communicate with them, you might be able to connect them to other people in the community with whom they would like to interact. And you can do this very, very, very quickly and very accurately using computer models that care about our psychology. And engaging in a dialogue around this prediction is fundamental to personalization, because no one wants to just have more and more hyper-targeted marketing without understanding where that insight has come from the person communicating with us. So it's really important to explain what data you're using, how you're using it, and it's actually an opportunity to have new conversations that can improve your models in future. And that's where reinforcement learning comes in again, that with every interaction you have with a customer, you should be trying to learn something new, whether it's learning something to serve them better next time or learning something that helps you serve people similar to them in future. When you put it that way, it looks very easy. It looks like a kind of straightforward process to personalization. As you all know, it's not the case. So fundamentally, we should have the consent of individuals whose digital footprint are shared with us. We should predict psychology in a scientific manner. And I'm sorry that my text is overlapped. The font has actually changed, which shows you how content can sometimes get lost in translation. Oh, it's just been fixed. Wow, fantastic. Was that the godly voice changing? And provide feedback straight away. Don't wait 6 months to tell your customer that now you know their personality and ethnicity and what their children like to eat for breakfast. They should know it as soon as you do, and preferably before. And personalize everything around that. So we've spoken about content, we've spoken about experience, interactions, and so on. What's fundamental is driving a dialogue, and I believe that's the future of personalization, so that we can improve the way in which we interact. Now, our journey with personalization and psychological prediction started in 2007. So quite early days of Facebook. It wasn't so hard to go viral back then because there were only a couple hundred apps. And my colleague created an app called My Personality, which allowed you to take scientifically validated psychometric tests completely for free and get your results straight away. So this was extremely popular. Lots of people opted in to share their data with us, resulting in by far the world's largest database of psychological ground truth. So that means your actual test on the kind of instruments used in psychometric assessment. People could also share their Facebook data with us via the Graph API. So now suddenly you have a huge database of actual records of behavior, because you can look back into 10 years worth of someone's behavior on Facebook, and something to compare that psychometricians have been working with for decades. And we use that data to build models. And in 2013, we showed it was possible to predict very, very sensitive attributes about you just from the pages that you like on Facebook. So things like personality, intelligence, sexual orientation, whether you use addictive substances, probably how many drinks you're going to have at the party tonight. All of these are private attributes that are revealed in one way or another through our behavior online. One of the benefits of doing research with Facebook, aside from being able to access this very exciting data, is that I get to have some more famous people than me explain the findings of the research. So please do forgive my content editing of this video. It's extremely low quality. I hope that it will go okay, but you can know that I've not shown it to anyone else, and I made it just for tonight. So sometimes personalization can make up for shortcomings in content too. So a short video.
Now, clicking like on Facebook is something most of us do without thinking.
The University of Cambridge over in London actually did a study
of what people like on Facebook to try to determine facts about them that they wouldn't otherwise know. So they didn't just look at the products, the movies, the bands that people liked. They also looked at the status updates that people liked, the photos that people liked, and they were able to draw some really, really interesting conclusions.
Accuracy was lowest, about 60% when it came to predicting whether a user's parents were still together when they were 21. People whose parents divorced before they were 21 tended to like statements about relationships. Drug users were ID'd with about 65% accuracy, smokers with 73%, and drinkers with 70%. Sexual orientation was also easier to distinguish among men, 88% right there. For women, it was about 75%. Gender, by the way, race, religion, and political views were predicted with high accuracy as well. For instance, white versus black, 95%.
High IQ corresponds to liking Mozart, science, and the Colbert Report.
don't be an idiot and think that if somebody clicked on Wicked the Musical that they're gay automatically, or they clicked on Harley Davidson and they're stupid automatically.
People who like Harley Davidson motorbikes are generally of low IQ. We thought we'd better offer a right to reply.
I'd say our average customer is probably more intelligent than most, and we've certainly got a lot of customers who are, well, people from Cambridge University for a start.
A like on Facebook can reveal if you're a gay man. Yeah, especially if what you choose to like is penises. Turning true.
The findings show that by analyzing just 10 likes, a computer could predict a person's personality more accurately than a work colleague. With 70 likes, the computer could predict a personality better than a friend. And with 150 likes, it could know someone even better than a family member.
Based on 300 Facebook likes, the model is said to know you better than you know yourself.
Thank you for your patience through that. So keep sharing, guys. Keep clicking. Just remember what you might be sharing with the world. And as Fareed Zakaria said there, we're actually getting to the stage now where computers can assess personality better than we do. So if you compare the prediction of a likes model to people's colleagues, then it only takes 10 of your likes to surpass your colleagues' knowledge of your ground truth personality. With 70 better than friends, with about 150 better than people's family members, and with 300 likes, the prediction is closer to your score on a psychometric test than your husband or wife. Now, what does this mean? It doesn't mean that the real us is on Facebook or that Facebook is the only digital environment. What it means is that when we use the internet, we are engaging in psychological behavior. That behavior contains information about our private attributes that can be used to help or harm us. And this is what we're trying to show through the research. So even language is something from which you can generate very accurate personality predictions because we know that extroverts and introverts use different language, and that's true online as it is offline. So finding relevant digital footprints is always the starting point for personalization, and you can try this for yourself to understand how you might be portraying yourself to the digital world. If you want to actually reach people of a particular profile, then you need to know what behaviors they engage in. So for example, if you're doing Facebook targeting and you want to reach intelligent people, then it might be obvious to target Mozart and science audiences, but maybe less obvious to target those who like walking on crunchy leaves, or Morgan Freeman's voice, or curly fries, or any number of the other keywords that seem to be correlated, don't ask me why, with higher intelligence. Although the caveat to this is that those models do learn and adapt, and therefore it's probably no longer the case that liking the things that were reported in the media will make you smarter. Of course, it works in all directions. So Harley Davidson might not have been very happy to hear that, but you can be very sophisticated about this. So it doesn't just need to be the two extremes. You can design content that works for people across the entire spectrum, depending on which trait you're optimizing for. Here's another example with openness and cooperativity. So basically, really competitive people are very well dressed, but they hate everyone. Putting this into practice with content isn't as hard as you think. So we worked with designers for this online retail brand, and they came up with these ads just based on our descriptions. So showing different ads to high versus low extroverts. And then we designed this as a study to test the impact. And what we found was that when you show extroverted ads to extroverts and introverted ads to introverts, the ROI on that advertising is doubled. So personality optimization makes ads twice as profitable, and it cuts through the noise as well because people start to see things that are more relevant for them. We've also done quite a lot of work with Hilton hotels, changing the copy and the images to suit, in this case, extroverts, in this case, team-working, family-oriented people. And again, this is having a huge impact on the ROI, and interestingly, also on social engagement. So one thing we didn't expect so much is people to be sharing this content as much as they were, because there was no incentive really to share it. There was no competition, there was no financial incentive. People just seemed to enjoy it, and that's why we made we turned this more into a brand awareness project, where we built apps that gave branded content based on personality. So suddenly, instead of telling people you are 0.6 on the conscientiousness scale, or you are slightly more impulsive than average, what we did was build a brand layer on top. So now we're talking about traveler types. We're talking about the deliberator who makes an itinerary before they travel. We're talking about the all-includer who is high in neuroticism, cares more about emotional experiences and luxury experiences. So you can be very creative using that, and the metrics seem to suggest that people really enjoy content that speaks to them in a psychologically tailored way, especially when they know that that's happening, and that should always be the case. So uplifts in social of close to 300% just from taking a new perspective. You'll see here that my top recommended destination when I took this screenshot about 2 years ago was Prague. So that for me is a good face validity test. I won't go through these stats, as I think we can cover them again in the panel, but the principal kind of points I wanted to leave you with is how to use this technology in an ethical and effective way. So these are the principles that we try to adhere to and that we make all of our collaborators adhere to. The first is control. So as I said before, nobody should have predictions made about them without their consent. So we're not talking about monitoring or surveillance here. We're talking about requesting things in a trusting environment. Once you've generated insight, share it immediately with those customers and be transparent about what you're doing, because ultimately they will then engage in that dialogue and give you better information. Provide them with something new that you wouldn't be able to otherwise. Otherwise, just recording, just using data for the sake of data isn't going to excite or engage anyone. And always be relevant. I need to know that if I'm sharing something personal with you, whether or not I realize that what I'm sharing is an aspect of my personality, I need to know that you will trust that in the right way and that it's relevant to the way that I want to work. So those are the principles I will leave you with. Thank you very much.